Hi everybody. Just going to bring this over here for the recording. There we go. Hi everyone, how are we doing? Everybody okay? That's good. So we're a week behind with this seminar because of a hack issue a few weeks ago. I'm good, thanks you. So we're only up to week 6 for the exam prep. Anyone that's had tutoring from me will know I'm big on this. Do I ever use words? Do I ever just use, do I just tell you or explain things just with my words? What's the main, those that have had tutoring from me, what's the main thing that I do? Or attempt to do anyway? Eyes. Most people will not learn by listening or reading. Most people need some other input in order to properly take information in. Some people can read, jot the notes down, and it's in their head immediately, like that. Those people are lucky. Not many people can learn like that. How do you guys learn? If you're trying to learn something, what's your way of doing it? If you guys were going to try and learn something new, how would you do it? So Kelly said, mind map it. Damon said, construct something visually. Very few people say, I'm just going to write it out until it sticks in my mind. Who panics and gets anxious and then that's how they study when they're really close to exams? So Ewan and Anna have said, watch a YouTube video. Again, feast for the eyes. Really good way is to get multiple different explanations as well, as a diagram, as a video. But don't just sit there and write something out until you hope that it goes into your brain. Because unless you're one of those lucky people, it's not going to stick into your brain. You may get part of it, but you're not going to get the whole thing. So what's a diagram? What's some examples of a diagram? So flowchart diagram. So we remember logical steps. So when you're drawing a diagram, or you're trying to study via a diagram, don't try and draw the entire diagram in one go. You start at one end and go to the other. Start in the middle and work out. Go to a point that makes sense and finish at the last, or the first part of what you're trying to draw, and go through to the last part. Because you're looking at a flow of information. Again, as humans, we look for logical flows of information. So Kelly said, an image of an experiment cell, which, yeah, is perfect. So if you're trying to remember how an experiment goes, draw it. If you're trying to remember the flow of genetic information from DNA to protein in biology, draw it like it's like a flow, like a wave on a flow chart. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, step 6, however many steps there are. When you do that, you're creating checkpoints in your mind. So if you were to get to number 2 and you can't quite remember number 3, but you remember number 4, you can write it out like that and then fill in the gaps with what makes sense. If you just try to learn the entirety of a flow of information, or how a cell divides, or whatever, how something happens in chemistry or anything, don't try and learn the entire thing. Learn one step at a time in a logical flow. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. Don't try and learn step 1 and step 10 and then try and meet in the middle. It won't work. What you can eventually get to the point of doing is I used to, probably not the best, but draw out the flow of information so many times that you close your eyes and you can actually just draw the flow with your eyes closed. It's a really good way of remembering. So everyone knows my stance on doing things on computers when you're trying to study. You've all heard me rant about it. Why is it important to use your hands? Any ideas? Yep. Better memory. Why? There is a connection between your hand and your brain. So as you're drawing the diagram, your brain is making a map of what you're drawing. If you're doing it on a computer, it's just not the same. You and Anna have said you actually have to think when you're writing. When you're drawing, you're creating the links in your brain because your hand, when you're writing, is connected to your brain. The disconnect between your mouse and the screen takes that, what's called kinesiology stuff away. It's a I can't remember the name. Link between your brain and your hand. I'm not going to try and pronounce that. It's been a long day. But when you're drawing, you're actually starting the map in your brain. When you're drawing a process, you're creating the links. And I'll explain how you can better cement those links in a little while. This shouldn't be a hugely long one, but I've said that before, I'd end up going for an hour. So the evidence says in the latest that drawing is superior to activities such as reading or writing because it forces the person to process information in multiple ways. Kinesthetically, there we go, with your hand. So you're learning and processing information in 3 different ways just by drawing. You get the benefit of writing because you're still technically writing it. You get that link between your hand and your head, that kinesthetic link. And when you compare, when this study compare the recall of all the different methods, it was almost double any other method of getting people to draw. So they would give people words to remember and they would tell them the word, then ask them to recall what the word was. They then got them to draw out what the word was, and I think it was 5 out of 20 for the word recall and 10 out of 20 for the visual when they were drawing. So you can see that it's not just me rambling, it does have quite a bit of scientific merit. And I know that it works because so many of my students that don't understand something, the moment you put it into a flowchart or something similar, they understand. Okay, so do you think you need to be an artist? I certainly am not. You think you need to be an artist to be able to draw, to learn through drawing? I often purposely draw my diagrams for my students terribly because they remember how bad the drawing was. They don't just remember the drawing, they remember all the things that I intentionally did wrong. Not all the time, sometimes they're just terrible. But if someone is struggling with something, I will intentionally draw it so that they laugh at how bad it is. But that creates a link and a memory. Hey, remember that time Liam drew this? Oh, it was terrible. I remember what it is now. See my thinking there? So we're now attaching a memory to the information. I often draw ridiculous comparisons or make comments about something in order to give that context. So a lot of people make a joke, silly comment, whatever's that information has been put into their brain, they also remember that there was a joke that went with it. They remember the joke, and then all of a sudden, boom, that information comes back. So I hope that what you're realizing is that you need to be doing more drawing. So why do you think drawing or drawing diagrams or being visual is better than just writing? In your own words, no right or wrong answer. So you still get the same benefit when you draw that you would if you'd written it out just using words. So pictures explain more and they're easy to understand. Do you think you can draw a picture of something without understanding it first? Or do you think in the process of drawing a picture or a flowchart, you will gain a greater understanding of what it is you're drawing? So, when you are drawing a picture, you have to have some of the knowledge already. What you're doing is taking that information and putting it in a different form, so a visual form. So now your brain remembers it in two different ways. Now, if you don't understand it, you draw a picture, the picture's going to look really weird and wrong. So, the more ways you can store the same information in your brain, the better. So, now we have active learning. And right, this is where the distinction between tracing and drawing, copying is really important. You're drawing this based on your own knowledge. You don't just go, if you just go to Google, type in bacterial cell, and you just draw that off Google without any input from you, do you think you're going to learn it? Or do you think you're just going to learn how to draw it? You will get some benefit from it. But what you want to do is take the knowledge that you have about a concept and then draw it in your own picture. So what you're doing is you're taking the information that you already know, you're putting it in another form in a different way and sticking it in your brain twice. Drawing diagrams off Google is helpful, but it's not. Yeah, it's not as good as creating your own diagrams. So even if they start as just flowcharts of flows of information, just don't go onto Google and trace it off the screen. Have a look at Google, close it, and then try and draw it. Okay. Look up again, try and draw it again. Okay, where did I go wrong? And then understand what you're actually drawing. Because really, if you're just copying off Google without really understanding, the information's not going to go into your brain. If you can draw something, then your understanding of it will increase massively. Here is a really cool way to learn. So oftentimes you'll get a jumbled up, I don't know if you've ever had it before where they give you a process, but it's all jumbled up and you have to put it back together in the right order. When you were little, they used to do it with words. They give you the words spelt wrong and you had to respell them. I hope they're not doing it in high school. So there is a very good reason for that. So when you, and a really good way to learn pathways and flows in especially in the sciences is to use flashcards, write out the process, completely randomize the order, and then put them back together. You would be surprised just how quickly you will learn something that way. Draw a process, draw it wrong, intentionally, diagram, put it aside for 10 minutes, come back and pick apart what you did wrong. It is an amazing way of cementing information. But yeah, if you're trying to learn biology, chemistry, physics, maths, write it out, write the order out, completely randomize the order, even put in some take 10 processes that you're trying to learn and mix them together. And then put them together on the floor in their right orders. And you'll be shocked at just how quickly that goes into your brain. Okay, and again, anyone who's had me as a tutor knows that I'm all about context. I think half the problem with the schools and the teachers is They're teaching you things that they haven't applied in the real world. So part of the Year 12 biology curriculum is biotechnology, which is a field I spent a long time working in. So I find it really easy to teach, and I can apply all the techniques and stuff they're learning to things that I've done in the real world. So they're talking about genetic engineering. I say, well, this is how we do it. In the lab, you can create mice that glow green. And all of a sudden, the student's like, what? Mice that glow green? So what have I done there? I've given this process that they're learning context. And a weird fact, like you can make mice glow green. Do you think people will remember weird stuff? Like we were talking about DNA and what damages DNA and causes cancer. Well, if you drink 70 cups of coffee a day, you'll probably die of cancer. But you'll probably die of a heart attack first. That person is immediately linking all those things together in their head, and they're going, what the heck is this guy on? Why is he telling me about this? Why is he telling me 70 cups of coffee can cause cancer, but 1 or 2 cups of coffee a day is fine? Maybe 10 if you're me. Because it gives everything context. What's a really boring? What was Kellyanne? What were we going through? Something, I don't know if anyone's done chemistry, but most of chemistry is pretty boring, right? Coming from senior chemistry teacher. Most of chemistry is boring. But what you can do is give it context. So when you're teaching or learning about the elements, don't just learn about what the elements are. I mean, like from the periodic table, go and look, okay, you want to learn about sodium from group 1, throw it into some water and it'll make a massive explosion. Mix it with chlorine, which is a deadly poison, and you get table salt. So it's just about putting a different spin on things. And how you remember is based on how it's stored in your brain. If I just read something on the computer, it's not going into my brain. The first question I ask all my students, even if they're in grade 9, is what do you want to be when you finish? What do you want to do when you finish school? And absolutely everything I teach them is based on the context of what they want to do. So all my students get taught in a slightly different way based on what their plans are for the end of when they finish school. If they want to be an engineer, okay, well, when you do engineering, this is what you'll do. And immediately you're creating these links in the brain. And it makes things a little bit less boring for people when they know that, okay, I want to do this, and this is what I'm going to use and why. So learn everything in context. Attach it to something interesting. You're learning about DNA. Learn about what damages DNA, what causes cancer, all those kind of things. So you can start to build a roadmap in your mind of where this information is going to take you. So there's this cool diagram creator here. I'll send this out after the session too. So you can use this to create flowcharts. Might have to sign up. I know. Creately is something we used to use. So start my free plan. Anyway, Anyway, that didn't quite go how I planned. But this is really cool. It allows you to create flowcharts. But just don't. Just draw them, please. Draw them with your hands. So, in which subject do you think this kind of learning is probably more effective? So yeah, probably the sciences. But everything that you study can be broken up into individual pieces. It's not just the sciences and the maths. Anything you do can be broken up into flowcharts. When you study business, you will learn about business processes. And absolutely every process in a business is broken up step by step and analyzed for how efficient it is. So anything you study can be broken up. I mean, the diagrams is probably more the sciences, but flowcharts is still a visual representation. You're still drawing out the steps step by step. Use a pencil. Was what you want to do. If you draw it in pen and you've got scribbles everywhere, it's not going to be neat and tidy, is it? So you want to have it as neat as possible. Even if you draw it in pencil first and then go over it in pen. Now, color. Everyone notice how obsessed with whiteboard markers I am. Have this many at the moment. All different colors. Weird, wacky colors. There is a reason for that. Because it breaks each step of the process up into clearly defined areas. There is a madness to my method, or a method to my madness. Not just making pretty pictures, but I'm not very good at drawing anyway, so they're never pretty. So, we can understand visual theories without eyes. What was I going to say? Yeah, so if we use our eyes, then we take in a lot more. So again, this is not just writing it, but this is going back and looking at it again. Who makes a judgment much quicker in their mind about something when they see it? Instant judgment in their head. So our eyes are much quicker at processing information when it can see something in a as visual. So a lot slower to process information when you're reading something. So a little bit more. Do not trace from the textbook. Who's done that before? Come on, own up. I know you've all done it. I've done it before. Straight off Google. Well, stop it. So we're no longer going to be tracing from the textbook. We can look at the textbook and draw it, but then close the textbook, start a new page, and try and draw it again. So this is the once you get to a point of sort of understanding in this visual stuff, you can quite literally just close your eyes and you can see what you've written. You can see what you've drawn. If you commit that picture to memory, you can close your eyes and draw the picture out if you do it properly. That's the point you want to get to. So, YouTube videos we've spoken about. What are some of your favorite YouTube channels? WooTube for maths. There's loads of chemistry ones. Khan Academy, Crash Course. There's heaps of different ones. Ewan says TED-Ed. So yeah, there's lots of different YouTube channels that you can use. Some of them are really good. Others just use words to try and explain things to you. The more visual something is, the better off you are. Okay. Uncluttered diagrams. So you don't need to put every single piece of information into your diagram. If your diagram is too cluttered, all that information that you're sticking in your head is just going to merge together. So, uncluttered, scattered page, scattered mind. So, uncluttered diagrams, uncluttered mind. So, another thing is learn how to draw the diagram from a very top-down view. Then you can add more, but get the outline. What does it look like from the top down? Okay, I'll add a little bit more. Okay, you're just committing a little bit more memory each time you add complexity. Don't try and draw the entire diagram in the first go. Draw the outline first, turn the page over, draw the outline again, add a bit more information. Next page, do the same thing, add a bit more information, and keep going and keep redrawing it until you get to the end. By the time you get to the end, you should be able to recite it in your sleep. So I'm going to, spend the last few minutes, I'm going to tell you about cells and what makes them up, and then I'm going to draw it for you. So, a human cell has a nucleus, it has ribosomes, it has a cell membrane, it has endoplasmic reticulum, it has a cytosol, and there is an organelle that is known as the powerhouse of the cell. How much of that did you just take in? How much of that could you recite back to me? Okay, now I'm going to draw. So we have the cell membrane, different parts of your diagram, different colors. So now we have the endoplasmic reticulum, which is this weird looking shape here. The got the rough endoplasmic reticulum. We have the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. What else did I say we have? We've got the cytosol, which is in the middle there. This is the rough ear. This is smooth. These are the ribosomes. And then what I say, the mitochondria, which is a powerhouse of the cell. So, pretty simple diagram, right? You think if you drew that a few times, you would be far more versed in what makes up a human cell than had I just spoken it. So what actually happened was I forgot the name of mitochondria. I've been doing this for a very long time, and I forgot the name of mitochondria. But you know what I did? I started drawing all the other things that I did know. And because there's all of these links made in my brain, eventually that was going to pop up. Or I was going to look very stupid, one of the two. Because if you commit these diagrams to your brain and you forget parts of them, often in drawing the other parts, these bits that you forget will come back, guaranteed. If you were to just write it out, they're not coming back. Uncluttered, so there's nothing in here, no writing in here. Each part is a different color, which helps to split all of the different parts up in your brain when you commit it to memory. I hope that, you know, this is all I do when I teach, is I draw diagrams and flowcharts. Because half the time I forget most of it, and then when I draw the picture, it all comes back into my brain. And you'd be surprised how many times this saved me in an exam when I went completely blank. But I knew half of it in a diagram or a flowchart. And the rest simply came to me once I start. Because those links are already there, once you start to put it together, you'll link to the bits that you've forgot. And that is the end of my TED Talk on drawing diagrams.